Good morning. This mic is just a joke. Yeah, so this mic is actually just for the camera again this morning. You may notice, those of you who have been here before, that there are some lovely new sound panels on the wall, and you can actually hear in here, which is super exciting. So anyway, we still need to use this for the camera, so that's why we're not any louder here in the room. I am using a brand new clicker, which should always work, but probably won't, because that's how days go for us sometimes. But as we get going here, we want to always say thank you to our friends at the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce for all that they do to grow businesses and entrepreneurs here in our region and beyond. And of course, to our friends at the Little Rock Tech Park for allowing us to use this awesome space. We have a couple of extra special guests in the room that we're going to tell you guys about at the end of the program. Just a little fun teaser there. And I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. So, as always, our screaming fast Wi-Fi is provided for Venture Center members, courtesy of our very own entrepreneur in residence, Lou McAllister and his company, Broadband Development Group. Broadband Development Group has a Hyperleap product that is 1 gig up and down, and all of our members have the opportunity to experience the power of that internet and wish that they could have it at home. If you're like me, you can't, because you live too far away. In any event, if you are not yet a member, you should talk to Ashley. That's Ashley. And she can help you fix that problem. And in the meantime, you can get on the Tech Park's Wi-Fi, and that's the information right there. It's LRTP guest, and the password is ThinkSpace, but in a fancy way. Just mentioned membership, so big idea. If you have one, you should talk to Ashley. Again, this is Ashley in the corner. She's not putting her hands up in the air so you can see her. That's Ashley, everyone. Anyway, so you talk to Ashley about how the Venture Center can help you take your idea and make it into a growing, breathing business. And here's the question, right? Why are we here? Why do we do this every week? What's the one thing that entrepreneurs or startups really need to be successful? Networking? Anybody else? Coffee? I always hear coffee. We fully believe that coffee is helpful. Connections are too, right? And so this whole program is designed to help connect the entrepreneurial community with the existing business community. And to that end, today's presenter, Chris, needs to meet small business owners and security professionals. So your job is to think about who you know who owns a small business or might be an IT security professional. You do mean that kind, right? Not like a bouncer, but like, maybe? Okay, so at the end, we're going to ask you who you know, and you're going to help us facilitate. Woo! Jessica needs caffeine. You're going to help us facilitate those connections and make Chris's business grow. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but your job right now is to start thinking about who you know. You're going to also show us, if you would be so kind, a little love on social media. You can find the Venture Center at Venture Center on Twitter, and you can find Chris's company, Citadel Systems, at Citadel Systems. We always like it when people lies. Oh, at Citadel AR, like Citadel, Arkansas, and on Facebook at the same thing. Chris likes to make it easy for you. You can find him in all the places, and you're going to use the hashtag Lift the Rock. And you're going to show Chris a little love as he comes up here to tell you all about Citadel Systems. So much love. Hi.
Hello. Do I get the magic click?
You do, but don't hit the black button.
Does that explode the room?
It might.
Excellent. I have you all hostage then. So, if I nod off up here, it's because I was in Jolt Hackathon all week. Jess can attest to that. I haven't had any caffeine this morning either, so just throw something at me, please. So as Jessica said, I'm Chris Wright. I'm here from Citadel Systems. We're a small business-focused cybersecurity consulting and services firm. Excellent, I got that out perfectly the first time. So what I mean by that is that we're focused almost solely on the smaller business. There's not a lot of other people in my position with the experience, the knowledge, and the understanding of security that are really focused on small business because it can't make these big Symantec and McAfee type companies a lot of money. That's really not my goal. Is to help these companies. Of course, I want to make a viable business as well and support myself, but my primary goal is to provide these services and that knowledge to these small companies because that's where the attackers are turning lately. The big banks, the governments, despite hearing the Equifaxes and the Home Depots and all those fun Yahoo hacks of late, those businesses are actually getting better at securing things. The reason you still see these big ones is because they are giant. They're very targeted. They're people finding ways in, and you're always going to have that threat out there. But for small businesses, you don't hear a lot about that because, well, they're not big names, and they're not big money targets. They don't have tons of customers. They don't the standard news, if it bleeds, it leads mantra. So you're not going to see your mom and pop shop on TV because most of the time there's no rules that these people have to report that, whereas the Equifaxes, the Home Depots, and the Yahoo are all forced to report this through federal law and state laws. The small businesses don't fall under any of those provisions, so they can keep it under wraps. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean they're not getting attacked because they are. They're just getting attacked in different manners and easier manners because, well, they haven't really thought about cybersecurity yet. So I've actually presented at Lift the Rock before, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot about my business, but I do want to take this time to give some educational information to you guys as professionals and business owners and members of other businesses. But I did want to hit on some of the top threats that are out there to small businesses. So first and foremost is ransomware. Let's see who hasn't ever heard of ransomware. Okay, good. I would hope everybody has. So this is where an attacker, not necessarily directly someone sitting at the keyboard hacking away at it. Just picture that little cat with the paws hitting on the keyboard. There's not an attacker out there doing that, trying to throw ransomware at you. It's mostly automated. People just throw these out there. It scans and just shoots out emails to every email it can find. And it'll just start at A.com, B at B.com, or they'll buy lists of email addresses or grab compromised email addresses from other places, off the dark web, off the light web, wherever you can find it. And they'll just fire out all these ransomware emails, hoping that somebody's going to open one of them, click on the attachment, which will start encrypting all of your data files on your computer. It does this. It has a secret key that you do not know until you pay the ransom back to the hacker through some sort of Bitcoin address. So the big issue here is not necessarily a technical one, but it's more of a personal education one. And in ransomware, generally what you're looking for is an email that has a very vague body and a very vague subject line and an attachment. So the fact that there is nothing in the body or the subject that really tells you what that email is, you're drawn to click on the attachment to figure out what's going on. When you click on that attachment, that's where the malware encryption process starts. So that's where it starts encrypting all of your Word documents, all of your Excel spreadsheets, all your photos, everything of value on your computer. So really the way to prevent this is to watch your email. Don't just automatically click on attachments. Look at it. Think about that. Look for the vagueness in that. And if you have any kind of belief that something is wrong here, it probably is. So don't second guess yourself. Just go with it. Next one up is phishing. I'm sure you guys have all heard about phishing as well. Anybody not heard about phishing? Anybody been phished? Okay. There's a lot of phishing out there. You probably, at this point, you don't even realize it or you don't even remember it. You know, the old Nigerian prince email from 10 years ago. People still get those. I mean, I look in my spam folder and I still have those there. So with phishing, what you're looking for as well is an unsolicited email that's trying to get you to cough up something sensitive, usually an account number or a login and a password or something like that. Usually they'll use psychological tactics in this case where they will say, hurry up, your account's going to be closed, or you're going to lose all this money, there's some sort of fear tactic or urgency tactic that goes along with that. So if you see those two, if you read an email and you start to get your heartbeat gets up because your account's going to be closed, or you're going to lose all your money, stop a minute. Think, is this legitimate? If you're getting it from a bank, do you even bank with that bank? Do you even have any money there? Do you have any accounts open? I get things all the time from banks that I've never even had an account with, never even been to, never even seen, never even lived in the same state. So if it's from a bank that you do use, which there's a lot of big banks out there. If you're a Bank of America user, you're probably going to get a Bank of America phishing email at some point, just because it's an assumption. It's a large bank. If you are a, First Bank of Clarendon, Arkansas, you're probably not going to get a phishing email from there. So if you use a big bank, you're more likely to be in that situation where you have the question of, is this legitimate or not? What you do in that case, call the bank. I've done this. I bank with a military-focused bank called USAA, and I've gotten phishing emails from them. I've called them before, and they say, yeah, we'd rather have you call us than have to go through refunding money, undoing this, looking for identity theft, and all that sort of stuff. So you might think that calling that bank is a chore, but just think about how much more of a chore it would be if you had money stolen or your identity stolen. Next is business email compromise. This is one that generally focuses on mostly our smaller business, small and mid-sized businesses where there is some sort of kind of jack of all trades, or people really don't have perfectly assigned roles. So in this case, you might have someone who is responsible for initiating funds transfers with a bank. They're a accountant, a financial manager or something at that organization. And their role is to work kind of at a low level with the money. There's usually somebody who might be a CFO or something at that organization that has the authority to request funds transfers. So in this case, you'll have an email that's either compromised internally by the company. So Austin at CIS, what's your CIS.com, whatever, CIstrategy.com, right? Okay, so it might come to Austin to say, hey, I need money, and that might be from Elise's account that's been compromised because her password was password 1, or her password was something easy. Not saying that it would be. It also may be, in the case of that, it might be from Elise at CI5, and instead of the S, it was a 5, or instead of an M, it's an RN, or something that's made to spoof that account. So in this case, if you're in that situation, if you have the power to do that and someone has specifically targeted you, inspect that email, inspect the from address, inspect the wording in the email. And most likely in a case like Austin and Elise, hey Elise, did you just tell me to send this? No? Oh, okay. Well, then this is probably a business email compromise type situation. So with all of these, look at the clues you have in your email address. Look at it closely to make sure somebody's not trying to spoof something. Think about the psychology of it. If there's someone trying to press urgency or press fear in you, in the case of business email compromise, it would be an authority type emotion where Elise is the company owner and Austin works for Elise. I assume you still work for Elise. Maybe not after you transferred that money. But always look at that. So there's different factors. Look at the whole thing put together. And if you get the slightest uneasy feeling about it, step back, go ask someone for help, go talk to wherever that request is purported to come from. So go talk to your coworker, call your bank, call your investment company, call the real estate agent if it's a if it's a real estate transaction, anything like that. People will try to get these things into anything where it can be. Think about, is there a way that someone could take advantage of this situation to steal money from you or extort money out of you? And then finally, I always have to throw this in there because this is a long-standing problem with technology, is we just don't keep the stuff up to date. I was presenting with Economic Development Commission about 3 months ago, and I jokingly mentioned that no one should still be using Windows XP because Windows XP has not been supported for 5 years now. There's no patches, nothing. Nobody good is looking for flaws in that software. And I looked down and there was somebody sheepishly kind of looking away. And I stopped her a minute at the break and I was like, you look kind of funny when I mentioned that. She's like, we still use Windows XP. And I was like, it's really bad. She said, well, I work for a nonprofit and we can afford it. And I said, well, no, you can probably afford it. You just didn't budget for it. So in that case, you really need to make sure that you have the means to upgrade your systems on a regular basis. But even more so, you need to make sure the stuff is patched. So if in any kind of end user computer, your Windows 10 computer, your Windows 7 computer, your Mac OS system, all have automatic updates. For your personal systems, if you have control over your work system in that case, turn on automatic updates. Then you don't have to think about it anymore. For your corporate systems, make sure you have some sort of process for applying those updates to that on a regular basis. Do you guys remember WannaCry that was in the news from about, you don't remember that? Man, millennial. Okay, WannaCry was about 3 months ago. It was a worldwide spread, what they called ransomware. Later they determined it wasn't ransomware. It was posing as ransomware, but really built to just wipe out your computer, just to wreak havoc. But it was originally called ransomware, but it did not spread the normal email way. It spread through technical flaws in another network service. It was a Windows networking service. And it was a version that has been out of date for probably 10 years now. But it's still turned on by default because Microsoft doesn't like to cause trouble when they set their default settings. There was a patch to the specific flaw that was released about 2 months before the WannaCry outbreak went worldwide. So first, you should have had that protocol disabled completely years ago. Second, there was a patch that you should have had applied at least a month or two before that, but people still hadn't done that, and that's why that malware spread so quickly. If there's a flu vaccine, why don't you go get it? If there's a vaccine against mumps, measles, and rubella, I think most of us have that at least. Some people even ate the polio stuff or the polio vaccine on the sugar cubes when they were young. So if that stuff is out there, why don't you get it? Well, people don't think for computers and stuff that you really need to think about it that much. They think about it as an appliance. Your computer is a toaster. Well, unfortunately, it's really not. It requires upkeep. You have to clean it. You have to maintain it. So think of it more like your car. You have to take it in. You have to get the oil changed. You need to get new tires. You need to change the spark plugs. Or you could just, buy one and then buy another car next year and then buy another car next year. But that gets kind of expensive. So any questions on that, or have I thoroughly confused everybody or bewildered everybody or made everybody want to go put their computer in the trash can? All right. So I do have to speak a little bit on my company, of course. So, and the graphic is really great. We do many things, but ultimately for most businesses that comes down to two services. And one is the tortoise and one is the hare. So the hare is risk assessments, one-time assessments or a regularly recurring assessment that comes in, looks at your security posture. We're looking at technical security posture. We're looking at your processes. How do you implement not just technical processes, but how do you hire people? How do you work with your financial institutions? How do you onboard new partners or vendors or things like that? So there's security and all that stuff. There's training that needs to be provided to your employees and your other workforce members. There's even physical security. I went and did a security test for a government agency once, and we found that we could climb over the wall of a common area into their server room. And this was like Medicare, so they had tens of thousands of health records in there. I could have just climbed over that, grabbed the server, pushed it back over the edge to a buddy, walked out with, tens, hundreds of thousands of social security numbers, healthcare records, addresses, phone numbers, names, everything. So it all comes together to give you an idea of what your risk from cybersecurity, hacking, attacks, things like that are. What a risk assessment does is gives you a one point in time picture of your security. So if we do this on an annual basis and I come to your place and do this today, it becomes less relevant as we go on. So you don't just do this once and then 3 years from now you're saying, hey, look, I've got a risk assessment. Well, it's stale. If you leave the bread out on your counter, it's going to get moldy. This doesn't get moldy, but it becomes practically useless after a period of time. So you want to do it on a regular basis. The second major offering that we have is a managed security package, and this is the tortoise. This is generally a short period of time each month, and we just kind of whittle away. We find the problems, we rack and stack them by criticality or severity of the risk, and we just hack away from the top to the bottom of that list. Each month we redo it, look at the list again, knock off a couple more problems. The difference between the tortoise and the hare is that the hare requires everybody to be on deck, and for all people at the company, most people at the company, to be involved in that security assessment when it's going on. So you're going to lose productivity in whatever you're doing for a day, 2 days, a week, generally for small business. With the managed security side, that's a lot slower. You're not going to get immediate results when you do that, but you're going to know that there's someone there watching out for your security on a regular basis. And we're looking at the technical side, we're looking at the process side. I might not look at everything at once. I won't look at everything at once. But you know that there's someone there looking at it that understands that when something changes 3 months from now, you're not stale like you would be with the risk assessment. If you've ever seen me speak before, you've seen this slide. I love the quote because it sums up pretty much everything I do. If you, not even with me, but if you as an organization, you as a person, put a little bit of effort up front into better preparing yourself to fend off or avoid cyber attacks and hacks, then you save yourself a lot more effort that you would have to put into if you're actually compromised or breached. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure perfectly sums up everything that I'm trying to do with a company. We talk in security about how it's hard to completely prevent these. It absolutely is. Offense is always easier than defense. But in this case, you've got a few people that are, especially for small businesses, you don't have those bond level villains trying to hack into your dry cleaning shop or your 10-person accounting firm or something like that. It's poor cyber hygiene, low-hanging fruit that usually lets these people in, and then they capitalize on that. So if you clean up those open back doors, the unlocked windows, the holes in the basement and things like that, then you can generally reduce your risk greatly without spending a lot of resources or money to do it. So with that, I'll take any questions, and I'll see if I have answers.
Okay. I saw this hand first. Oh, sorry. You're going to use the mic and we'll pass it along.
She's used to seeing if that hand comes up.
I'm not going to make that joke. Just let it go.
Yeah.
So I would, rather than a question, I wanted to tell you a story.
Okay.
I was sitting at lunch a few months ago with a gentleman who had, he owned like 3 or 4 companies, and he had recently hired a new CFO. And like 2 weeks after he hired this guy, the owner went on vacation and was out in the Rockies climbing a mountain somewhere where cell phone didn't work. And so the CFO got an email that said it was from him, asking him to wire $75,000 to purchase some business somewhere. And it was just enough like something that he would do that the new guy wired the money and didn't ask any questions till he got back. So that stuff is really, I mean, it's real. All you have to do is kick a few rocks over and you hear stories.
Yeah, there's numerous of these. I've got a business that I work in, and I just started on the Tortoise service, the managed security. But I've known the business for a while, and I'm working through a business partner with them. And for about a year now, he's come to me with many of the stories. They deal with a lot of international companies. So it's not necessarily that they get their email compromised in that case. It's that any one of their international companies in Russia, China, Vietnam, anywhere gets compromised. And people can look into the mannerisms, the wording that people use, the timing they use in email. And they don't necessarily have to compromise an internal email account as much as they would make one that looks like it. So that if you just kind of glanced at it and you thought, hey, this is CI strategy, that's C1 strategy or C(l) strategy or something like that. So it's too easy to do that kind of stuff. I mean, kind of the most maniacal version of that is they get into Elise's email and they're directing Austin to do things that look like they're from Elise, and Austin's going, okay, I'm doing it. And it turns out, well, Elise has been off the grid for a week climbing Mount Evans or something. And Austin knows that's not okay, sitting on a beach with a martini somewhere. Yeah, probably so. And phone in the other hand. Any more? There was one on the back. Okay.
Okay, mine is a three-part question.
Uh-oh.
Okay, what is your typical customer, your ideal customer, and what types of customers actually need you most?
Oh, that's a good one. So I don't really have a typical customer. I've had all over the board. I've worked with medical, I've worked with fintech, travel industry. I've even taught classes to people. So I've done security for over a decade, and I've had experience in a lot of the different areas. So I'm not shy about jumping into things. And it's, sailing through my career, I was an Air Force officer, and I kind of bounced around to different types of jobs and then got into security, and there it clicked. So to me, I'm very passionate about security. I love doing security. I love all aspects of it. So even if I'm not, super expert at something, I'll still jump in, learn what I need to, and go take care of a client. So I really haven't had a typical client yet. Probably the clients that I'm looking for now are the ones with just tons and tons of money. Not really, actually. They need to have a decent amount they need to have a little bit of money, but I've geared my services so that they are very cost effective. Even, my, what I charge for, for actually doing the work, is far less than what any of the, big name. It's really hard. There's not big name people in security consulting, but there are firms around the country, and they're very expensive. When I was working at FIS, we hired 2 people to be on site for 6 months of the year, and I think we paid them $1 million. And these are people like me, so they're people at my level of, senior level security stuff. So it's the pay is very good when you get into the right place, and so they have to charge enough to be able to pay the good people if they want the good people. But typically I'm looking for places that have lots of information and they need to secure it. Primarily that is healthcare providers. Billers, processors, anybody that touches a medical record somewhere, they have a compliance requirement in HIPAA. So they are prime for me because they need the help. And a lot of the smaller ones, even though HIPAA's been around since 1996, just now the Health and Human Services is starting to put teeth into HIPAA and charging people for breaches. So actually finding them on top of all the costs that they would pay to recover from the breach, then the Office of Civil Rights from Health and Human Services comes and knocks on the door and says, that'll be $1.5 million, please. So it's kind of salt in the wound for them, and that's making some of them turn around and go, well, I guess I need to get on board with this. But also accounting firms, because they have a lot of personal information. Law firms have a lot of information that's varied. Some law firms will have HIPAA compliance as well because they're working with healthcare related cases. And those are my customer, or my desired customers, and the people that really need me are kind of the two in this, are one and the same.
So these days, remote working is more popular. Are there any additional factors to consider if you have a remote workforce?
Yes, if you have a remote workforce and you are, by that you're an organization and you are allowing your people to work remotely. If you have sensitive enough information, you should look into setting up a corporate VPN. They're not as difficult as they used to be anymore. Most of the small, mid-sized business routers and firewalls, the network equipment that'll go into one of these businesses has that capability in there. Another aspect to that is to train your workers. So if you sit down in a place like this and you hop on the Wi-Fi, here I think it's pretty trustworthy. I don't ever get on Blue Cell Wi-Fi because I'm a Venture Center member, so I always use Hyperleap. And I also wish that it went out to my house. But you want to make sure they understand that just going anywhere and hopping on any Wi-Fi is probably not a good idea. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of tools that are out there I can click a couple of buttons and I can set up a rogue access point that you can connect to. I can decrypt your traffic and look at everything you send. So if you hop on just everything that says free Wi-Fi, you're putting yourself at risk there. So know what Wi-Fi you're using. If you go to a coffee shop, know that it's legit Wi-Fi from there. Even that's not, there's no perfect security, but even there's risk in that because those people are offering it as a secondary service. Their real service is the food or the coffee that they offer. They're not really network technicians and they don't understand how to set it up. So they've probably thrown something together or let a service provider set it up for them. And then just physical security on things. Make sure you know where your laptop is. Make sure you know where your phone is. Don't walk away from those things. Don't just leave them somewhere and assume that nobody's going to walk out with them. So that's very important. We don't think about that a lot when we're talking about, because people always want to think about cybersecurity and think about that hacker in the dark room with the hoodie on, just banging away at the keyboard trying to get into your stuff. But that's like less than 1% of how people, how these kind of attacks happen. Most of them are low-hanging fruit, opportunistic kind of things.
Speaking about knowing where your laptop and stuff is, do you know where yours is at?
I gave it to you, and I said, I will kill you.
I left the room. Question about the hacking through the business emails. Mm-hmm. Is there software available that detects hacks coming in? Let me give you an example. In the insurance industry, we do not have any filters on any email that gets sent to us. It's our responsibility to delete stuff that we know is spam. Mm-hmm. The reason we do that is from like lawyers and accountants. If something comes through that's time sensitive or it's client sensitive, we don't need it hitting a junk email. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is there anything that could catch, when there's a hack out there that automatically this software picks it up and make sure that does not get through, or if it's in our system, it pulls it out before somebody can open it?
Not really.
That's software specific. I'm not sure if that's your expertise.
You've turned it off. It's that spam filtering and that junk email filtering. That's there for a reason. I understand why you turn it off because it does have false positive pretty consistently. It's trying to detect it based on heuristics and known fingerprints of spam email, which some things are going to look like. I get tons of it. I get, most of what goes into my spam filter is legitimate. Some cases it's not, but that's kind of what that's there for. When you're looking at that, those tools are using all the same tools as any other piece of software would use. So if there was another piece of software on, it would do the exact same thing for the most part as a spam or junk filter. So not really.
So it's our responsibility, and our administrator does an excellent job. When somebody sees something, we say, hey, we got this came through. She goes out there and locks that down and basically kicks that. She's got to wait, I think, to be able to kick that out or at least notify everybody, hey, don't open the email from Chris from
Yeah,
Citadel.
don't ever open any emails from me. So there's ways, if you have an administrator, and this is the big difference between large business and small business. Usually you go into a small business, or I go into a small business, and they're lucky to have someone in-house that actually does IT or works on these things. If you've got an administrator and you have that capability, I would have them look into tuning that spam or junk filter, because you can tune it higher sensitivity or lower sensitivity. You can put specific types of emails, or if you're getting from specific domains or there's specific characteristics in there. If you're used to looking at the header for an email and it says from to subject attachment. Well, you can expand that and it's going to be 50, 100 lines long, and it tells you everywhere that email went before it got to your box. It's got to travel. I mean, where it comes from, something could say, this is from, John at Insurance Center, and it could actually be from, Joe at NigerianPrince.com, and he's just spoofed that. I mean, if you've got John from Insurance Center's emails coming from an IP address that's registered to Nigeria or China or Russia, that's probably not legit. No. That's why. It's something you have to have an administrator, somebody that looks in there and is regularly looks at it to do. It's very technical. Exactly. So.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Chris. Have we met?
Yes, we have met. So what made you decide to jump ship from corporate land and do this?
Oh, do you want the real answer or the fake answer?
I like any answers.
So I was at FIS, and it was the environment there was getting kind of bad for security. It was, we're dwindling resources, things like that. We were being asked to do more and more and more with less and less and less. And I had been putting together a business plan, a business idea for about 2 years before that. And so finally, at a certain point, it was like kind of the breaking point. It's like, I've got to get out of here. Hey, I have this business plan, and I really want to help small businesses. Let me jump out and do that. And then I started finding places like this, like all the different groups that meet up in the area, the Tech Fest and .NET user group folks, and really getting into the technical community and seeing that, there's a need for this kind of stuff out there. So that really pushed me, motivated me to continue on with that idea and, bring it into reality.
So if there's one easy thing that all of us can go back and make sure that we're doing in order to try and keep all of our things secure, what would that be?
Patch your computer regularly. That's going to take care of a lot of the low-hanging fruit about people looking. Because when people send ransomware, they're looking for flaws in certain things. So when a lot of these other things come, there's a lot of other little pieces or little hacks, little attacks that will take place because you have an open port or you have an older piece of software. So if you go and make sure you're updating that regularly, and with a laptop or a desktop or something like that, just go turn on automatic updates and let it do its thing. You can complain that it's going to try to shut down and reboot in the middle of when you're watching Netflix, but yeah, sorry. But I'm pretty sure you'd rather have a little break to go to the bathroom in your binge fest than having to clean up stolen money out of a bank account or identity theft. Identity theft to this day is still extremely difficult to recover from, even with everybody understanding what it is, knowing it in an institutional level. Banks and governments and everybody understands what it is and why it happens and how to undo it. It's just hard to get people to actually do the work to undo it. So if you're going to avoid identity theft in any way, shape, or form, a little bit of inconvenience is nothing compared to what you'll have if your identity gets stolen. People start taking out loans in your name or in your business's name. That's even harder for people to understand, because your business is an entity in itself. It's like a person. And you've got to take care of that, your business's personal information, just like you take care of your own personal information.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to let you think about one, and I'm going to ask another one. So, I'm going to hand this to you in just a second, Laura. So, is there any precedent for liability, like if my company gets compromised and then things go out to other entities and then they get compromised as a result of what they think came from me? Is there any precedent for weird liability things, like because I clicked on the phishing email and now it goes to 100 other people that then have things happen to them?
No.
No.
No. There's generally not a belief that everyone is perfect at doing this. So there has been, other than if you're in a company and you do something like that, then there is precedent for you being fired. But for legal liability and things like that, the liability is going to come back to the company, and they're the ones that are going to get sued. And I don't recall any kind of recourse where a company has come back to an individual employee who did something wrong other than firing them, because it would be, from my understanding of the legal world, it would be very hard in that case to prove intent.
But there is the possibility that
Oh, Equifax is looking at billions of dollars of lawsuits and multiple class actions right now that are forming. So yes, the company is probably, and that's an even a growing thing from the company, is that states, governments are giving, not really the federal government at this point, but state governments are giving consumers more power to go back against the company. So the consumer backlash is just going to increase. You're seeing, I mean, there's the legal swirls against Equifax right now are immense, and it's going to hurt them for a while. Yes. So every website should have should be encrypted, an SSL certificate. That should just be a give me now. You can get them for free from Let's Encrypt. It's still a little bit expensive when you go to someplace like VeriSign or other places, but if you have any kind of web presence, you should have an encrypted connection to that site, so an SSL site. Even if it's just a static web page, it's kind of a branding and a marketing thing right now. If I were to go to a place that didn't have it, I would just look and laugh and wonder, especially if it was like a bank or an accounting firm or a law firm or something. I would kind of wonder about that. As for WordPress is probably the most attacked content management system that's out there. The biggest part of taking care of that is making sure your base WordPress install is updated regularly, and any plugin that you have, especially the plugins. This is where most people will get into a WordPress site, is through those plugins that are in there that allow you to do things like weed out spam, or allow a better text editor for doing comments, or Facebook pixels, or things like that. All those different little things you put in there. That's the power of WordPress, but that's also the weakness of WordPress. So make sure all of those are updated. I get a daily report on my log files from my tiny company's WordPress site, and it amazes me to see what people are automated just trying to hit. A long list of the URLs on there where they're looking for plugins I don't have, so they're just automated hitting that and trying to find the weaknesses in my website so they can take it over. On social media, people complain a lot about privacy, but really, if you don't put it on social media, you don't have to worry about the privacy for it. So, those college fraternity party pictures and stuff like that, take them off. They're not. You can remove those from there so that people can't see them. You can untag yourself or remove yourself from any picture that somebody else posted for you. You can delete them off of your account. More mundane things like, strong political beliefs or angry rants or something like that, keep those off there as well. But with social media, there's also some privacy stuff in there. You can limit who can see information you post on there. Do that. Go to the privacy tab and look through those settings and see who can see posts. You can set new posts to be seen by friends only. You can separate out your friends list into acquaintances and good friends and all of that. If you want to go that deep and set that up, do that. Also be wary of doing all of the little surveys and things on there. There's a couple of different angles, and it's funny you asked that because I did a little deal for Channel 11 on that about 6 months ago. Some of those little quizzes and stuff, if you're giving them permissions into your Facebook profile, then they can scrape information to spam you later or to try to phish you or something like that. Also, if there's some things, like if you start to see questions on there, it's like, hey, take this little quiz, and it's all the same questions that you would put on your forgotten password functionality, like, what city were you born in? What was the color of your first car? What's your mother's maiden name? I would start to worry there a little bit too. But I've seen those. There's ones that they'll ask, 30 questions, and 3 of them will be things that I could use to get into your bank account through forgotten password functionality. From what I've seen, they've gotten government contracts for stuff like that. Unfortunately, yeah, I could see something like that happening. I haven't kept up in the last week or so. I've been a little busy, so I haven't kept up with the. I wasn't complaining. It was fun busy, but I haven't kept up with it. But yeah, there's a possibility. I mean, it's kind of like a construction company driving a bulldozer through your living room and then coming back and trying to sell you services to rebuild your living room. That's not a very big market. There's 3 companies that do that stuff. And you're, as a consumer, you're completely at the whim of those 3 companies. So we're strong-armed into almost whatever they want to do, unless somebody in the government gets a backbone and says, no, this isn't going to happen anymore.
With the ransomware, if you get targeted, should you just pay it and then forget about it, or should you alert the authorities and not pay it?
That's a difficult question. So things I would do first, if you did get hit with ransomware, there are ransomwares that have been broken. So I made a puzzle this weekend for Jolt that was ransomware, and it was broken, and that was the whole point. The people had to find out that it was broken, go find the decryptor, decrypt the message, and that's how they solved the flag.
But usually it's like a 24-hour window, right? They say you have to pay before this date or we'll just wipe everything.
If they're doing that, then you're probably the problem with that is it's like the ransom for anything. I stole your cat. Give me $50 or you don't see your cat again. Well, your cat might be dead right now. Your cat might be in the river somewhere. Unfortunately, I mean, it's morbid, but in the case of your computer, there's so many ransomwares out there that where they encrypt and they don't even have the keys. They can't uncrypt it even if you pay, and they would want to. So it's really hit or miss with that anyway. Usually, if you're quick, you can find somebody, go look and see what you have, do a quick investigation. It's not going to take that long. Like if you got hit by ransomware and called me, and I wasn't still recovering from Jolt sleeping, I could come over, look at your computer, and probably in about half hour to an hour figure out if you could decrypt it or not. Because there's a clearinghouse for this kind of stuff. There's stuff that's built by the security community to help people recover from ransomware without paying the ransom. But the biggest thing for ransomware, and I didn't mention this, I should have mentioned this in the first slide there, back up your stuff. I mean, have a backup. That's the easiest way. If you have a backup of your data, ransomware has no teeth. It'll take you a little time to recover it, but you'll be able to recover it.
Because that's one of the things that people say, well, I call the cops, and they said they don't know what to do.
Oh, the cops, yeah. So law enforcement at a local level, probably every local law enforcement in the country has nothing that they can do for cyber attacks and things like that. Probably some states, some of the larger states can handle that. Arkansas is not one of them. Arkansas has no state entity that can handle cyber crimes of that nature. The FBI and the Secret Service in Arkansas can, but they're focused on national security kind of things. The FBI has, what is it, IC3, I think is their database. They take reports on this kind of stuff, but it's just more of an information gathering sort of thing so that they can look at stuff and focus. You know, if everybody in this room got hit by ransomware and reported it, then they would probably start taking a look at ransomware hits in Arkansas and Central Arkansas. But for the most part, for small entities, the FBI and the Secret Service aren't really interested because it's not really important enough to warrant the expenditure of that level of money and resources to do that. So you're kind of on your own, unfortunately.
You mentioned earlier that we need to keep all of our software patches and upgrades like on auto update on our laptops. But what about on WordPress?
There is ways to do that. There's ways to set WordPress to auto update. I'm not that well versed in it.
Okay.
I manually do my WordPress page for my company. But there's ways that you can set that up to auto update where you don't have to think about that at all.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Give Chris some love, y'all. Thank you. So, yeah, full disclosure, Chris had basically been up all weekend working on our cybersecurity event that we just wrapped up on Sunday afternoon. So we're extra glad that he was able to take the time to share with us this morning. I feel like I learned some stuff. Did you guys learn some things? Yeah. I may or may not have almost responded to a similar email on my third day at the Venture Center when our CEO happened to be out of town. And I got this urgent request that also had a text message that accompanied it. So that was pretty good. That wanted me to wire money, and I noticed that it was from Venture Center with 2 R's.com, which is not our domain. Anyhow, but I was that close to calling the bank. So anyhow, happens to everybody, even well-informed people. Yay for Citadel Systems. So I'm sure you guys know somebody that you have thought of over this time that could probably stand to talk to Chris, right? And learn a little bit more about what he's doing. And so you can use the cards in front of you. They look a lot like the ones on the screen, right? And all you're going to do is write the name of the person that you think needs to meet Chris. Maybe they're a small business owner. Maybe they're a security professional that you think just needs to get to know him. Maybe there are, all kinds of things that I feel like you've got to be thinking of at this point. So all you need to do is write their name. You don't need to give us their contact information, but at the bottom of the card, you put your name and your email, and we'll follow up with you and remind you to make that connection. Thanks to awesome people like you, some really valuable connections have been made at Lift the Rock, resulting in sales and investments and growing of companies and all kinds of exciting things. And as soon as we get our gong stand welded back together, we'll be bringing it back in here for some serious celebrations of success. So next week, this brings me to our exciting special guest. And I'm going to have to look behind me, which I don't normally do, to get the name of the program right. There we go. So we have some guests here from the Young Leaders of the Americas Initiative in partnership with Global Ties Arkansas. Yeah, sorry, brain could not. I've also been up all weekend, in case any of you guys were wondering. So we're going to have these gentlemen present. Are all three of them presenting next week, or is it the next two? Excellent. So they'll be presenting their companies. Guys, put your hands in the air so they can see you. Take a second to meet these fellas. They're spending several weeks here in Central Arkansas as part of this program, getting to know the community. And the chamber, I believe, has a gentleman who is this him? No. Okay. Well, you guys have somebody who's hanging out with you for several weeks as well. So as you go to a number of different companies while you're just doing your business, make sure that you meet all of these awesome people that are visiting from all over the world. and learn more about their companies. And you're going to have a chance to meet 3 of them next Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. Before you go, fill out the card, meet the people, drink the coffee. There's a lot out there. Ashley and I don't want to have to take care of it on our own. Right? Okay, awesome. Give Chris one more round of applause. Have a great day.